Basara is a failed hero who was banished from his village for using forbidden magic. However, everything changes when he moves in with two freaky demon stepsisters. Now he has to protect them from evil demons while cracking them in secret.
Yeah, boy.
It all begins when Basara's father, Jin, informs Basara in a restaurant that he's getting remarried, and his new little sisters will be arriving soon because she's eager to meet him. This makes Basara so nervous that he decides to clear his head with 5 rounds of gooning in the bathroom. On arriving there, he sees a redhead baddie with large milkers named Mio taking off her peach protectors, so he nervously turns to the wall, where he sees a warning from the manager, urging all customers to knock before entering because the door lock is broken. Realizing that he's messed up, he quickly covers Mio's mouth to stop her from screaming, and begs her to calm down since it was all just a misunderstanding. Mio pretends to cooperate, but once he lets go of her, she resets his empty brain with a smack in the face. She scolds him for acting like Diddy and tries to end his virgin life with a knee strike, but luckily, Jin arrives with another girl, Maria, and that's when they realize that they're foster siblings. Soon after, they're all seated at the dinner table together, and Basara asks Jin about the girl's mother. So Jin explains that she'll be out of the country for a while for a business trip. When Basara wakes up the next morning, the first thing he sees is Mio on top of him, waving her juicy melons in his face. She cheerfully greets him and explains that she's giving him special service because Grok told her it's the best way to wake up guys in the morning. Even though Basara is confused, she proceeds to do a pole dance on Eggplant, but she feels something sturdy poking her back door. So she goes under the sheets to investigate, only to find a spicy video game. She scolds him for having such goonery content at home, but as he tries to explain, he suddenly slips and falls on top of her. This makes Mio so angry that she kicks him right in the jewels and promises to burn them off if he tries anything sus with her again. After she leaves, Basara moves downstairs, where Maria flashes her striped plot armor at him and cheerfully reveals that she's the one who planted the sus video game in his room to teach him degenerate moves to try on his new stepsisters, so he scolds her. A while later, Basara takes Mio shopping and leaves her to find a bike, but some ugly hoodlums suddenly surround her and pressure her to taste their lollipops. However, Basara arrives and knocks one of the morons out with his bicycle. As the others move in to retaliate, Basara blinds them with a bottle of pepper, allowing him to escape with Mio on his bike. While riding together, Mio apologizes for causing trouble, but Basara says it's fine since they can buy more pepper later. They soon arrive at a hill, which is a special spot to Basara, and he notices that Mio is still feeling guilty, so he explains that they need to support each other to become a proper family. Hearing this, Mio admits that he acted like a cool big brother earlier. Later that evening, Jin informs Basara that he's traveling to Dubai to do freelancing work and urges him to look after the girls in his absence. After he leaves, Basara moves into the living room to tell the girls, but he sees that they've switched off the lights and are now acting strange. Suddenly, Mio tells him to leave the house, and Maria blasts him into the wall with a wind magic spell. As he wonders what's going on, Maria transforms into a demonic form and informs him that Mio is the future demon lord. Maria then explains that they altered Jin's memories so they can use his home as their new base, and she now intends to do the same with Basara to make him cooperate. Basara is shocked, and he tries to make them change their mind with talk no jutsu, but Maria casts her mind-warping spell on him, and Mio commands him to leave the house. However, Basara doesn't move an inch, so Maria tries to cast the spell again. Suddenly, Basara zooms around them at light speed, leaving both girls completely shocked. When Maria blasts him with another spell, Basara summons a sword and deflects her attack before revealing that he's from the clan of heroes. Hearing this, Mio is shocked that he isn't in the hidden village like the rest of the heroes, but Basara refuses to tell her why he's in the human world. He then charges in with a powerful attack, but stops before the sword makes impact and angrily tells them to get out of his house. After they leave, Basara fills Jin in on what happened, but the sleazy deadbeat says he only pretended to get tricked by them because Mio is the only daughter of a peaceful demon lord named Wilbert, who brought an end to the war between the heroes and demons. Apparently, some battle-hungry demons, who hated the truce, came after his throne, so to protect Mio, Wilbert sent her to be raised by some humans. However, since Wilbert is now dead, the new demon lord has sent his minions after Mio to claim Wilbert's dormant power inside her. Meanwhile, Mio and Maria are on Basara's special hill, and Maria suggests finding another base, but Mio refuses because she doesn't want to deceive anyone else or make them suffer. Just then, a demon appears and sends its beasts to attack them, but the demon baddies annihilate all of them with ease using hard fists and Harry Potter spells. However, the demon respawns and yoinks Mio off the cliff, but Basara arrives just in time to catch her. The demon tries to ambush Basara, but he vaporizes it with a single slash and tells the girls to come back home with him. Shocked, Mio asks why, so he shows her the picture they took together and says he now considers them family. Later that night, Mio asks Basara why he saved demon girls despite being a member of the hero clan, so she explains that Jin filled him in on their situation and he wants to protect Mio because she's innocent. This confuses Mio because he mentioned earlier that the hero clan is watching them, but Basara explains that he and Jin are now living as ordinary humans who have no connections with the hero village. When he asks about Mio, Maria says she's taking a long bath to calm her nerves, and as she leaves the room, she cheerfully tells him to call her little sister whenever he wants. As Mio cleans herself with a towel, she has flashbacks of the battle on the hill, and she feels that she's a bigger fraud than Megumi because Basara had to save her despite her years of magic training with Maria. Just then, Basara knocks on the door and apologizes to her for getting angry at her without knowing anything. As Mio tries to reply, she suddenly gets dizzy and collapses on the floor, so Basara rushes in to check on her. As he tries to help her up, she slaps his hand away and tells him not to apologize because they deceived him, but Basara claims it makes them even since he hid his hero background from them as well. She then brings up how she tried to force him away from his home, but Basara points out that she chose to manipulate his memories instead of using violent methods so that he'd leave unharmed. Hearing this, Mio finally admits that she was trying to protect him, but Basara says she doesn't have to do anything like that anymore because he and Jin have decided to protect her. He then helps her back to her feet and pats her head while reminding her that he's her Oni-chan now, but Maria suddenly arrives and starts teasing them. However, when she mentions how Basara deflected her magic, Basara claims it was a fluke and walks away. Later that night, Mio is sitting on the bed, remembering Basara's words from earlier about their new family bond, and she looks at a family portrait with her foster parents, but this only gives her traumatic flashbacks of them getting barbecued in front of her. Just then, Maria arrives and asks how she's doing, but Mio claims she's fine. While staring at her old foster family portrait, Mio asks if Basara really intends to be family with them, but Maria places their new family portrait on top of it and advises her to accept Basara and Jin's kindness since she needs all the allies she can get. Shortly afterwards, everyone gathers on a magic circle in the living room, where Maria suggests that Basara and Mio forge a master-servant pact, which would make Basara able to pinpoint Mio's location at all times. Basara argues that using Google Maps would be effective, but Maria reminds him that it could malfunction and Mio could end up getting caught in the enemy's base, so he agrees with her. She then declares that it's the perfect night to forge the contract since the spell can only be cast on a full moon, but Basara asks Mio to say something, thinking she'll decline the offer. Shockingly, Mio says she's fine with it since it would allow them to know each other's whereabouts, so Maria explains to Basara that the pact will be complete when he kisses the magic circle that appears on Mio's hand. However, the magic circle appears on Basara's hand instead, so Mio desperately questions Maria to know what went wrong. But Maria says she now has to kiss Basara's hand to complete the ritual. Mio angrily refuses, claiming she'd never become a slave to a worthless incel, but Basara informs them that the magic circle on his hand is about to disappear. So Maria urges her to kiss it since it can be released on the next full moon. Despite this, Mio hesitates and the circle disappears, causing a strange crest to appear on Mio's neck. Suddenly, Mio's kitty gets tingly, and when Basara tries to check on her, she makes a lady noise and crouches on the floor. Maria explains that the entire point of the Master-Servant Pact is to maintain the subordinate's loyalty, so when the subordinate takes rebellious actions, the curse activates, and this happened to Mio because she refused to kiss his hand. Maria then reveals that she's a succubus, and Mio's body is twitching because she used her magic to cast the spell. When Basara asks how to save her, Maria explains that the curse is lifted when the master makes the servant submit by doing freaky things with her until she swears loyalty to him. Instead of taking the W, the moron starts to move away, but Maria explains that Mio's condition could get deadly if he doesn't relieve her, so he starts feeling up her arms and abs. However, when he grabs her milk bags, Mio makes the loudest war cry, so Basara goes plus ultra and plays with her soft mountain peaks for several minutes, while Maria watches in excitement. Eventually, Mio reaches her limit, And as Maria wipes her love juice from the ground, Basara asks why she didn't tell him about the curse beforehand, so Maria explains that she was keeping it as insurance in case he refuses. Surprisingly, Basara is chill with her response, but Mio drags her to another room to stick flaming hot rocks up her back door as punishment for embarrassing her. The next morning, Maria drops Mio and Basara off at school and shows them a license she has, which allows her to patrol the area however she wants. In the locker room, Mio tells Basara not to cling to her at school, and he agrees because he doesn't want people to find out they're living together. As she walks away, Basara remembers a conversation he had with Maria earlier, where she explained that the master-servant testament is based on mutual trust, so the curse will activate when the servant takes action with the intent of betraying the master. Shortly afterwards, Basara meets up with his homeroom teacher, Mamoru, and introduces himself to the class. When the bell rings, Mamoru orders the students to line up in the hall, but once he leaves, the class rep, Yuki, suddenly hugs Basara, leaving everyone stunned. As Mio scolds Basara, he tries to convince Yuki to leave, but then remembers that she's actually his old friend. However, Mio separates them and tells Yuki to back off because she's living with Basara now, and this makes everyone in class freak out even more. Because of this, Basara is hated by all the boys in class, and Mio treats him coldly as well because she's jealous of his relationship with Yuki. But a dude named Takigawa approaches him and makes friends with him. After school, Basara and Mio meet up with Maria, but Yuki suddenly arrives and asks to speak with him privately. They soon arrive at a restaurant, where they cheerfully talk about old times, but Yuki switches to a serious tone while warning Basara not to get involved with Mio any further. Hearing this, Basara realizes that Yuki is the one sent by the hero village to observe her, but they have no idea that Maria and Mio are seated close by watching them as they talk. Mio feels stupid for not knowing that Yuki was Basara's comrade from the hero village, and she fears that her outburst in class has made him ditch her to hang out with Yuki instead, so Maria comforts her by reminding her that Yuki isn't coming after her. However, Mio is more worried that Yuki could taste Basara's white cream before her, so her slave crest activates, causing her body to start twitching. Meanwhile, Basara explains to Yuki that Mio's parents were murdered by evil demons, who are still chasing after her, and she's an innocent girl trying to live a normal life, which is why he wants to protect her. Hearing this, Mio storms out of the restaurant, so Maria chases her to the road, where she tearfully asks how she's meant to face Basara when he's going so far for her. Maria advises her to open up her heart and have faith in him. In the restaurant, Basara brings up an incident he caused 5 years ago, but Yuki says it's not his fault because he's the one who saved them, so Basara thanks her and explains that he wants to protect Mio because she's trying to live as best she can, despite her past. After leaving the restaurant, Yuki expresses her concern that Basara could get hurt if he stays alone with Mio, but he assures her that he'll be fine and says he doesn't intend to involve her or the village in their fight. However, Yuki suddenly summons her hero gear and annihilates a demon in the area before explaining to him that the demons are being drawn by Mio's demon lord power. Yuki claims that the village will mark Mio for elimination if they deem her existence a danger to society, and she promises not to show mercy if that happens, even if Basara ends up hating her for it. Later that night, Basara explains everything to the girls, but Maria explains that he has to deepen his trust with Mio because she was feeling insecure earlier about his bond with Yuki, so Basara reluctantly agrees. Shortly after, Maria takes them to the bathroom and explains that the perfect way to build trust together is to have a saucy bath together. But Basara complains as usual, so she teases him until he folds. As Mio scrubs Basara's back, Maria gives her a signal, so she takes off her towel and uses her H-cup cannons to do the scrubbing instead. Hours later, Basara wakes up, and he feels relieved that it was all just a dream, but Maria explains that it was actually real, and he collapsed mid-performance after getting a nosebleed. She then points out that he's grabbing her bare peaches, so he jumps away from the bed and apologizes to her before asking to speak with her about something important. A few days later, Mio notices that Basara is sleeping in class and has been doing this consistently for several days, so she concludes that he's spending all his energy doing incognito stroking to avoid her. When she locks eyes with Yuki, she remembers her warning Basara to stay away from her, but Takigawa informs Basara and Yuki that they've been assigned to stay after school to organize their class's summer assignments. Hearing this, Basara asks Mio to contact Maria to inform her that he's coming late, but Yuki interrupts by saying that she'll handle it alone since it's her job as class rep. However, Basara insists on joining her, and this makes Mio so jealous that her slave curse activates, causing her to pass out in his arms. Shortly after, Mio is laid to rest in the nurse's office, and that nurse, Chisato, explains to Basara that she'll be fine in a few hours since she just has a slight fever. Chisato then brings up the fact that Basara is the most hated person in their school and advises him to make good allies without worrying about the quantity. Suddenly, Chisato is called for a meeting, so she hands Basara the key to her office and advises him to consider who his friends and enemies are before acting. After she leaves, Mio's slave curse starts going haywire again, so Basara tries to leave to give her some air, but she grabs his arm and begs him to stay. Like a true gentleman, he agrees to stay and informs Takigawa that he won't be able to do the teacher's task, so Takigawa decides to handle it for him. Later at the vending machine, Basara concludes a call with Maria, but Takigawa suddenly arrives and starts teasing him, so he hands Takigawa a drink and thanks him for his help. Just then, the lights go out, and Basara realizes that demons have infiltrated their school. Meanwhile, Yuki arrives at the infirmary and tells Mio that she wants to talk to her. As the demons charge at Basara, the bootleg Ichigo knocks out Takigawa and slashes them apart with his sword. When he returns to the infirmary, he doesn't find Mio there because she's on the roof with Yuki, who orders her to leave Basara so that he'll no longer suffer around her. However, Mio refuses her request and explains that he decided to protect her because she's family, so Yuki summons her sword and fires a slash at Mio, which she blocks easily. As Mio spams airbending moves at her, Yuki dodges and shatters her attacks as well as her barrier with a powerful slash. She then reveals that Basara can't fight as he used to anymore because 5 years ago, he eliminated many of his companions in order to save her and some others in their clan, which is the reason he and Jin were banished. This shocks Mio, but Yuki calls her cruel for making Basara wield his sword and charges in to end her, but Basara suddenly arrives and scolds both of them for fighting. Suddenly, a masked demon named Lars appears and reveals to Mio that Yuki has been ordered to unalive her as she becomes a threat to humanity, which is why Basara and Maria have been secretly fighting off the demons drawn to her. Suddenly, Lars summons a demon behind Mio, but when the demon attacks, Basara jumps in and receives the brutal backshot to protect her. The demon tries to finish her job, but Yuki destroys it and declares that she'll never forgive Lars while attacking him repeatedly, but he dodges and tells them to heal Basara up quickly to save his life. He then tells Maria that Basara's current condition is all her fault for choosing to involve others in her futile struggle for revenge, but he offers to end all her struggles in an instant and vanishes into his portal, leaving her crying over Basara. Hours later, Basara is resting on the bed, and Maria informs Mio that he'll regain his strength after some rest, which makes her feel relieved. However, Mio is still haunted by Lars's words, so she lies that she has a headache and walks away to clear her head. When Basara wakes up, Maria praises him for recovering so quickly, so he explains that the members of the hero clan train their bodies like Saitama, right from their early years. When Basara was still a midget, he overpowered all his age mates in training, so the elders concluded that he's the hope of the new generation. Suddenly, an injured man arrived and informed them that the seal on the sacred demon sword Brynhildr had been broken, and the person responsible was a guy named Seita, who was possessed by an evil spirit. As the possessed Seita charged at the villagers, the adults stood their ground while Basara and his fellow brats ran away, but Seita blew all of them away and viscously murdered some of the heroes. Seita then moved in to unalive Yuki, but Basara rushed in and activated a special technique, which annihilated Seita and plenty of other heroes around. In the present, Basara asks Maria about Mio, and she assumes that Mio is playing with her cookie to relieve stress, but when they enter her room, they're shocked to see that she's disappeared. Maria immediately breaks down in tears and starts blaming herself, but the Sigma Lord calms her down with a head pat and assures her that they'll find her. Meanwhile, Mio is in the forest, and she silently casts a spell to keep everyone away. Suddenly, Lars arrives, and he applauds her for deciding to be the sole sacrifice, but Mio says she'd rather throw hands and spams the most brutal flame attacks in her arsenal at him. Despite her efforts, Lars is still frame-mogging without a single scratch on him, and he praises her for being a better fire user than the two donuts in One Piece and Demon Slayer. Realizing that she can't beat him, Mio surrenders and begs him not to harm Basara and the others, so he places some dark handcuffs on her hand and opens a portal to the demon realm. However, Yuki makes a surprise entrance and starts attacking Lars, but Lars manages to block her slashes. When Lars asks why she's suddenly allying with Mio, Yuki transforms into her full hero mode and declares that she'll carve out his balls for hurting Basara. As Yuki attacks Lars, she realizes that Mio is a good person just like Basara claimed, since she was willing to offer herself up to save him, but the discount Darth Vader easily blocks her attacks with a dark barrier, so she unleashes an ultra-powered slash, which shatters the barrier. When she attacks again, Lars jumps to a high platform and launches some dark blasts at her, but Yuki manages to dodge, so he creates a bunch of demonic orbs and uses them to overwhelm her. Even in this battered state, Yuki refuses to give up because she knows she's only alive thanks to Basara's sacrifice all those years ago, but she's shocked to see that Lars has already cooked up a mega-sized Rasengan to destroy her. Mio tries to plead for her life, but Lars declares that he'll eliminate anyone who interferes with his mission and throws the dark orb at her, causing Mio to scream in fear. However, Basara makes a heroic entrance and holds the orb back with his sword while remembering how he unknowingly used an attack called Banishing Shift during the incident 5 years ago, which is capable of erasing every attack or power from existence, and even vaporize the remains of its victims. Back then, Basara used this attack to eliminate Seta, and several other heroes were clapped out of existence as well, so the people feared Basara, and the Elder decided to confine Basara and the demon sword Brynhildr to prevent the tragedy from repeating itself. In the present, Basara's resolve to protect Mio gives him enough power to annihilate Lars's dark orb, and Yuki realizes that he just used a banishing shift, but he explains that it's an incomplete version which he can only use for a short time. He then attacks Lars repeatedly, but Lars evades his strikes and blasts him with a barrage of demon orbs, which he easily rips to shreds. When Basara attacks again, Lars blocks with his dark barrier and grabs Basara by the throat while declaring that it's game over for him. However, Basara holds his hand and calls out to Maria, who jumps in and punches through Lars's barrier, sending him to the ground. Before Lars can recuperate, Basara charges and assaults him with a flurry of vicious slashes, which eventually destroys him. As Mio and Maria embrace each other, Basara tries to join the heartwarming reunion, but a demon appears behind him and stabs him, turning him into a cherry donut. Seeing this, Mio goes berserk and releases a surge of energy that annihilates the demon. When Basara wakes up, he sees Mio overflowing with aura, and he realizes that it's the demon Lord Wilbert's power, so he tries to convince her to calm down. However, Mio explains that she can't control the power and begs him to unalive her so that she wouldn't destroy the world, but Basara refuses because he's determined to protect her, even if it means defying the world. Hearing this, she begs him to save her, so Basara pulls out his sword and unleashes the complete version of Banishing Shift, which successfully erases all the demonic energy rampaging around her. The next morning, Yuki arrives at their home to see Basara, but Maria says he's still in bed, banged up from the battle the previous day, so Yuki hands her some medicine from the hero village and leaves. While staring at the city, Yuki realizes that Basara has finally learned how to control his Banishing Shift ability, and this brings tears to her eyes. Days later, Basara meets Takigawa on the school roof and accuses him of being Lars, but Takigawa tries to feign ignorance, so Basara throws a punch at him, forcing him to use his demon speed in dodging. Since the jig is up, Takigawa unleashes his dark aura while asking Basara if he's there for round 2, but Basara says he's there to negotiate because he knows Lars was the one sent by the new demon lord to observe Mio. Basara points out that the new demon lord would want to send someone more powerful after Mio since Lars failed his mission, and since he can't deal with them yet, he wants Lars to keep observing her to keep both of them away from trouble. Lars agrees with Takigawa and informs him that the demon who murdered Mio's parents is named Zalgia, and he'll be making a move soon. The next morning, Maria crawls into Basara's clothes in bed and begs him to feed her his morning wood, but Basara bonks her on the head and scolds her. When he enters the bathroom, he sees Mio having a bath, and he immediately covers her mouth once again to explain himself, but this time, he slips, causing her to land on top of him with her cake planted on his face. When she notices that he's grabbing her peaches, he kicks him to a wall and scolds him for entering the bathroom without knocking. However, Basara explains that he didn't do it on purpose because he only wants to use the Master-Servant Pact when necessary, so Mio apologizes and laughs about how similar it is to their first meeting. Despite this, Mio still obliterates his marbles with a lightning spell, and after she leaves, Yuki suddenly arrives behind him, wearing nothing but a towel, and begs him to let her wash him like old times, but Boss Sara declines. However, Yuki feels jealous that he's rejecting her after having baths with Mio and Maria, so she takes off her plot armor and threatens to extract his soul with an intense hawk tua if he doesn't let her wash him. As Yuki washes Boss Sara's hair, Mio suddenly returns and explains that she only overreacted earlier because she got embarrassed after he seized the opportunity to play with her dump truck. Hearing this, Mio starts interrogating him, but she notices that there's a female uniform outside, so she storms into the bathroom and tries to Pikachu him again. However, her slave curse suddenly activates, causing her kitten to start meowing, so the Arrow director, Maria, rushes in to record another round of special content. But Boss Sara throws her out of the room. As Boss Sara checks on Mio, she tries to punish him with lightning bolts, but her body starts tweaking even more, so he tells Yuki to stay in the living room and takes her to another room to turn her fountain into a Pacific Ocean. Later that evening, Boss Sara and Tokigawa are enjoying some barbecue meat together at a fast food joint, and Tokigawa narrates how the demon Lord Wilbert decided to withdraw his troops because he feared Jin's monstrous strength in combat, which is why the demons consider him a war god on par with Goku. He then informs Boss Sara that the demons are sending reinforcements for observation because they found out that Mio has awakened Wilbert's power, and he won't be able to help much since the demon they'll send is one more powerful than him. When Boss Sara tells him about the Master-Servant Pact with Mio, Tokigawa explains that the magic does more than just act as a GPS, since it raises their combat strength, the stronger their faith and loyalty grow, and this is why high-ranking demons try to amass others to command through the Master-Servant Pact. Tokigawa then reveals that the curse activates to the fullest when the slave is captured by the enemy, since it makes them a liability to their master, and most servants end up dying from it. However, Tokigawa decides to change the subject and realizes that their meat has burnt up, but Milk Mommy Chisato suddenly arrives and offers to join them. As they eat together, Chisato tells Boss Sara that she knows Jin, and she likes the pictures he takes. After the meal, Tokigawa leaves, and Chisato asks Boss Sara if they were discussing demons, but Boss Sara lies that he was just yapping about how horrible the Stranger Things season finale was. However, Chisato suddenly hugs him and takes him to a different spot, where she advises him to think hard about what he really wants to protect. She then kisses him on the forehead and silently prays for him before leaving. A while later, Lars meets up with a demon named Valga, who looks like Dwayne Johnson on steroids, and he immediately moves to check on Mio, but Lars stops him and warns him that the heroes will unalive him if anything happens to Mio. Despite this, Valga decides to check things by himself and leaves, but Lars is annoyed because he knows the bonehead won't stop at observing things. Suddenly, a demon with the body shape of Maserati X, named Zest, walks through a portal and informs him that she's there on orders from a high-ranking demon named Zulja, so he agrees to cooperate with her. Meanwhile, Maria confirms to Boss Sara that Mio's curse could reach its maximum if she's captured by the enemy, and Boss Sara claims that the reason she had them do the pact was to ensure that Wilbert's power doesn't fall into enemy hands. However, she explains that she did it to ensure Mio's safety by making them grow stronger together as their loyalty to each other increases, so Boss Sara decides that they should leave the Master-Servant Pact as it is. This makes Maria excited, so she suggests that Boss Sara plays some dating games to help him up his Riz game and hence be able to properly build trust with Mio, but Boss Sara calls her an idiot. Despite this, Maria explains that it's far more foolish to fight with conventional means because their forces are too limited to combat the current Demon Lord's faction. When the game begins, Maria asks Boss Sara to pick one of the response options listed on screen, but Bro ends up picking the worst one and fails the game, so Maria explains that he doesn't understand a woman's feelings at all. In the second round, Maria decides to take things to the next level by unlocking a freaky setting of the video game and tempting Boss Sara to fulfill his Gunner urges, but Mio suddenly arrives and takes her to another room to knock the hormone devil out of her brain. On the street somewhere, a demon jumps in to attack a random lady, but a blonde hero destroys it with a slash and informs his partner, Shiba, that Mio has been labeled as a target for elimination. The next day in school, some seniors confront Boss Sara about his relationship with Mio, but before things can get violent, the teacher arrives and scares them away. After everyone leaves, Yuki arrives and asks Boss Sara if he has any plans for the next weekend. Once he confirms that he doesn't, she asks him to go on a date with her, but they have no idea that Shiba and his team are watching them from afar while plotting how to destroy Mio. The next Saturday, Boss Sara and Yuki are walking through the mall together, and an energetic salesgirl starts pestering them with clothing recommendations, but Boss Zara's spidey senses start tingling. However, when he turns back, he doesn't see anyone around, but Mio suddenly arrives and grabs Yuki's arm. The red-headed dummy tries to cook up a lie to cover up her obvious eavesdropping, but Boss Zara thanks her for saving them from the hyperactive salesgirl, and Yuki asks her to help her choose some clothes. Following this, Boss Zara and the girls spend several hours shopping together, and Yuki watches while Boss Zara and his foster sisters bicker, but Yuki's sister, Kurumi, suddenly arrives and tells Yuki to stop fooling around. Shortly after, Boss Zara and the girls are outside, making calls and looking for Yuki, but she's nowhere to be found, so Boss Zara fears that something might have happened to her. Suddenly, Valga makes an explosive entrance, which Yuki and the girls barely manage to evade, and Boss Zara thinks Valga kidnapped Yuki, so he charges in to cut the ugly demon in half. However, Boss Zara's sword doesn't penetrate Valga's skin, and Valga sends the wannabe Jon Snow flying into the wall with a shockwave. As Valga approaches Boss Zara to finish him off, Mio blasts him with a fireball, but it does 0 damage to him, so Maria delivers a brutal punch to his gut, which actually hurts him. Despite this, Valga punches Boss Zara away, and Boss Zara catches her, but he spams shockwave attacks at the whole squad, forcing them to run for their lives. To finish them, Valga blasts the girls with his most powerful shockwave yet, but Boss Zara comes in clutch by splitting it in half. Seeing this, Valga gets fired up and prepares to use his ultimate attack, but the hero, Takashi, freezes the wannabe Hulk with his ice spear and shatters him to pieces. Boss Zara asks Takashi why he's there, but Shiba suddenly arrives as well and informs him that they're there on orders from the hero village, which Boss Zara calls Cap because he knows the village would never send Shiba out. When Boss Zara tries to ask them about Yuki, Kurumi makes a dramatic entrance by firing a lightning blast right in front of them, and she scolds him for protecting the Demon Lord's daughter while ignoring what Yuki has endured for the past 5 years. Takashi then informs Boss Zara that Mio has been deemed a target of elimination by the village, and Shiba warns him that he'll be considered an enemy if he tries to interfere, but Boss Zara claims he's already prepared for that. As Kurumi and Takashi prepare to fight him, Shiba suddenly shatters the barrier surrounding them with the snap of a finger and tells his bonehead comrades to calm down because the elders would be furious if they accidentally destroy the city. He then proposes that they settle their differences on a later date when he's prepared a barrier capable of holding their battle, and Boss Zara agrees, so Shiba decides that it would be a 3-on-3 match, taking place in a week. Later that evening, Boss Zara tells Jin about the matter at hand and points out that Shiba wouldn't be joining the fight since he's just an observer, but Jin still warns him to be careful with him. However, Jin advises him to go all out against Yuki, but Boss Zara argues that Yuki doesn't want to fight against Mio, so Jin reminds him that she's still a hero from the village, charged with maintaining peace. Boss Zara reminds him that going up against the village would mean making enemies out of all the heroes in the world, but Jin says he doesn't care since they banished them from the village and assures him that he has his back. Hours later, Boss Zara begins training with the girls in preparation for the match, and he informs them that the heroes have the sacred spear Takashi uses, called Byako, which releases powerful destructive gusts. He also tells them about how Kurumi is as good at using magic as Merlin himself, and this makes the girls worry that they'll lose, but Boss Zara explains that there's a chance because Byako's presence limits her to wind magic. Meanwhile, Kurumi informs Yuki that the location of their duel has been settled and accuses Yuki of being besties with Mio, but she denies. So Kurumi passionately asks why she gave up everything to chase a dude who's living a carefree life in the city. In the past, Boss Zara used to whoop Takashi's tiny behind in sword training, and they were great friends, but after he accidentally erased people with Banishing Shift, Takashi had a deep resentment for Boss Zara. Now in the present, Takashi swears that he'll make Boss Zara pay for his crimes. Meanwhile, Boss Zara is chilling in his living room, but Maria suddenly arrives in a towel and advises him to please Mio some more so that she'd grow stronger through the Master-Servant Pact. Boss Zara argues that he'd rather build trust with her over time than go down the Alabama route with his sister, but Maria suddenly takes off her plot armor and starts massaging his chest with her milk factories. When he asks what she's doing, she explains that succubuses grow stronger by absorbing Gunnar energy, and she wants him to make her stronger if he can't do it for Mio. Even though Boss Zara resists, Maria still proceeds to use Mia Khalifa's special techniques on him, until Mio arrives and catches them. Boss Zara fears that she's about to fry his marbles for being cultured, but instead, she demands to take Maria's place and explains that she needs to grow stronger more than Maria. Even though his words from earlier made her happy, fulfilling her request, Basara starts playing with her milk jugs, and she's surprised that her body feels hypersensitive in base form, so Maria explains that frequent activation of the curse made her that way. As Basara prepares to feast on her megaplots, Maria suggests that he uses honey for more efficiency, so he pours the honey on her vanilla cakes and starts playing with them while she makes lady noises. To take things even further, he proceeds to drink her natural milk from the source, and this makes her reach her limit as her slave crest glows brightly. So Maria explains that they'll grow stronger once the light settles. The next day in school, Basara meets up with Takigawa, who asks to know where the duel is taking place that evening, but Basara says he has no idea yet since he's still waiting for the information. Takigawa then warns him that he might have to interfere in the duel and get rid of the heroes if they get close to unaliving Mio, but Basara swears that he'll stop him if he tries to lay hands on Yuki or the others. Afterwards, Basara meets up with Yuki in a private room, and she pleads with him to withdraw from the duel because she doesn't want him to get eliminated for defending a target, but he refuses, claiming that he wants to protect Mio as her brother. After she tells him the location of the duel, she tries to walk away, but Basara stops her by handing her a key to his home and tells her that he doesn't want their friendship to end. Later that evening, Team Basara and the hero team gather on the bridge where the match is scheduled to begin, and Takashi uses his spear to cast a large barrier around the area. As the barrier extends, Shiba is magically ejected from the area, so Takashi explains that he booted him because he doesn't want Shiba interfering with the battle. Once the duel begins, Basara and Takashi clash weapons, but Basara leaves him and heads straight for Yuki and Kurume, and Mio overwhelms him with a barrage of flame blasts. Kurumi sends Basara flying with a large tornado, and she meets him in the air, enraged that he's going after her sister, as she encircles him with wind attacks. However, Basara spins like a fidget spinner and slashes through the wind, allowing him to land on a roof. There, Kurumi meets up with him and says he's underestimating her team for trying to get a one-on-one battle with Yuki before firing another wind blast at him. Meanwhile, Shiba is seated on a high platform in the area outside the duel, and while watching the fight, he notices that Mio and Maria are luring Takashi away and buying time until Basara returns. Takashi follows the demon girls into a mysterious building, and the girls throw some mannequins at him, but he slashes through them easily, so Maria overwhelms him with Bruce Lee combos until he strikes back with his spear. While blocking his shield, Maria brags that she and her team are fully charged, thanks to the OnlyFans play they did earlier, but Takashi shuts her up by activating his spear, Bayako, which launches her into the roof. He then starts yapping about his spear's ability to attack at close range, but Mio appears behind him and uses a spell to fill the room with water. Outside, Kurume chases Basara down with a mischievous smile on her face, but Basara jumps behind her and launches an attack, which Kurume blocks with a wind barrier. Kurume is infuriated that he isn't taking her seriously, so she launches him through a wall and tells him that the village won't accept him back, even if he wins without hurting her, but Basara declares that he'll protect Mio as well as everyone else that's precious to him. When Kurume fires a wind attack, Basara counters with a banishing shift slash that erases her wind spell and her channel to the spirits as well before sending her flying with a second attack. As Kurumi falls through the air, she silently apologizes for Yuki because the last thing she wanted was for her sister to face Basara, but Basara catches her mid-air and does a Superman landing on the ground. There, Kurumi realizes that her plot is spilling out, so she quickly hides it from Basara, and as he smiles at her, she remembers how she used to play around with him when they were younger, making her finally call him Oni-chan. However, their heartwarming moment is cut short when Yuki arrives, so Kurumi begs Basara to run away, but the dude stands still while Yuki charges at him until she knocks him to the ground with her sword handle. While checking on him, Kurumi asks Yuki why she did it, so she explains that it's the only way she could think of, and feeds him a potion powerful enough to knock him out for half a day. She then tells Kurumi to watch over him and leaves the area. At the same time, Mio falls from exhaustion after covering the lower part of the building with water, so Maria begs her to undo the spell, but Takashi uses his spear to cast all the water away from the building before firing a final flash at them. However, the girls manage to escape his attack, so he chases them down and deflects all of Mio's desperate attacks until they arrive at a spot where Yuki forces him back with a wind spell. Takashi warns Yuki that he won't show any mercy to anyone who sides with the demons, but Yuki says it's fine because they're just repeating what happened 5 years ago, and she's determined to protect Basara and his family to prove her heroism. Enraged, Takashi charges at her, and as they clash, Mio tries to intervene, but Maria stops her and tells her to go after Basara while she handles things there. Elsewhere, Basara is resting unconscious on Kurume's lap, and he starts sleep-talking about how guilty he feels, which makes Kurume realize that he's been suffering as well. Suddenly, Mio arrives, and Kurume stands up to face her, but she tells her she doesn't intend to fight and tries desperately to wake Basara up. Kurume tells her it's no use because he's been given a sleeping potion, but she screams his name even louder and somehow reaches into his soul, where she comforts him by planting his face in her mega milkers. She then reminds him of his goal to protect her and Maria, so he finally wakes up, to the shock of Kurume. Meanwhile, Takashi overwhelms Yuki with spear attacks, but when he moves in to finish her, Maria jumps in to kick him, forcing him to send her flying into a wall. While charging at him, Yuki realizes that it's the village that betrayed Basara for exiling him after he saved them, but Takashi sends her flying into a car. As he charges in to finish her, Basara stops his attack and scolds him for trying to end his own friend, but Takashi explains that his duty to protect the world comes above everything else. When he jumps away, he notices that Basara has changed his battle style, so he confidently launches several attacks at him, but Basara dodges and forces him back with a flurry of sword strikes. Because of this, Bayako goes into automatic defense mode and launches Takashi to the ground while summoning a large tiger. This confuses the demon girls, so Yuki explains that the spear went berserk and broke its seal to reveal its true form. Basara informs them that Bayako won't attack them if they don't do anything to it since it's a guardian beast, but Yuki explains that leaving the monster alone would lead to the barrier being destroyed. To solve the issue, Basara decides to draw out the beast's attack and break through its barrier at the same time, and Yuki offers to help him with her sword, Sakuya. Basara fears that it's too much for her in her condition, but Yuki tells him to trust her and uses her magical sword to slash through the tiger's barrier, allowing Basara to erase it using Banishing Shift. When Takashi wakes up, he asks Basara to unalive him, claiming that it should be easy for him since he stooped low to side with the demon lord's daughter, but Mio smacks the fool in the face and yells at him for being unreasonable. To calm her down, Basara rizzes her up by promising to always protect her, but Shiba suddenly arrives and threatens Takashi with demonic eyes until he finally backs down. He then calls Kuromi and Yuki to follow them, and Basara tries to intervene, but Yuki stops him to prevent further chaos and follows Shiba. A few days later, Mio is in class, worrying for Basara because he's been acting depressed ever since Yuki left, but her friends arrive and offer to watch Mandingo movies with her to clear her head. On their way back from school, Basara stops to think about Yuki, so Mio comforts him by holding his hand. When they return home, Basara is shocked to see Yuki in an apron, making beef stew. When he asks how she's there, Yuki explains that the village decided to pretend like the recent events never happened and reverted Mio to her original state because the elders got a call from Big Daddy Jin. Hearing this, Basara wonders what kind of deal his dad made with the elders, but he hugs Yuki tightly and expresses how relieved he is to see her again. As Yuki tries to kiss him, Mio barges in and scolds her for trying to steal her man, but Yuki shocks all of them by revealing that the elders permitted her to live with them. The freaky loli breaks the ice by showing Yuki the footage of all the diabolical ways Basara has feasted on Mio's cupcakes, but Mio turns off the television and scolds her. While eating dinner together, Maria explains everything about Mio and Basara's master-servant pact to her and asks her to form one with Basara as well since the following night is a full moon, so Yuki agrees to go through with it. The next morning, Maria watches from afar as Yuki and Mio fight over Basara on their way to school, but she hears the voice of Lars in her head, inviting her to meet with him privately. Hours later, Yuki is changing into her swimsuit in the locker room, but Mio's weapons of mass destruction steal her attention, making her feel insecure about her orange-sized plots. However, she recalls Maria telling her that they'd grow when they're played with by the man she loves, and this makes her eagerly anticipate the showdown happening that night. Meanwhile, the boys are changing in class, and Basara notices Maria hopping around their school, so he rushes after her and meets her in a classroom, where he bonks her on the head and scolds her for being nosy. Maria explains that she's trying to check on Mio's safety since a lot of things have happened recently, and she asks Basara to accompany her, so he agrees. She then takes him to the ladies' room and starts explaining the different positions he can drill Mio's cookie there, but she suddenly senses a strange presence nearby, so she rushes ahead to find them. Basara runs after her, thinking that Muzan may have appeared at their school, but when they arrive at the school roof, all she shows him are two students recreating private scenes from Game of Thrones together, leaving him disappointed. Meanwhile, Yuki and Mio have a heated swimming race to determine who will get the first bounce on Basara's curved cucumber, but they end up getting a tie, and the teacher tells them to leave the pool. At the same time, Maria takes Basara to the girls' changing room, where she makes Basara king in the north by placing Mio's plot covers on his head like a crown, but they hear the girls approaching, so Maria drags him inside one of the lockers to hide. While they're there, Maria expresses her fears that Mio will crack her skull open like an egg if she catches them, but she suddenly switches gears and starts playing with Basara's body. When Mio opens her locker, she's shocked to see Maria feasting on Basara's abs like a parfait, but she shuts the locker and tells her friends a lie to make them leave. Once they're gone, she beats both Basara and Maria to a pulp for being too cultured, and Basara apologizes to her before mentioning that he has to make amends with Yuki as well. Mio feels jealous that Basara is thinking about Yuki, so her slave curse activates, causing her body to get hot all over, so Basara grabs her fun bags to relieve her. However, Maria explains that he has to be rougher than usual to ensure that their combat capabilities are increased, and once he agrees, she takes them to the bathroom, where Basara showers some water on Mio. As the water trickles down her body, Mio makes intense lady noises, and after turning off the shower, Basara skips right to the main course, as he uses all of Johnny Sins's secret techniques to play with her milk factories until she reaches her limit. Maria thanks Basara for helping Mio get stronger, but he's surprised that she's not as excited about it as usual, so she teases him for using a shower for his cultured play. A while later, Basara and Mio tell Yuki that they can't find Maria in school anymore, and Basara asks her to go home with Yuki while he stays back to search for Maria. After they leave, Basara walks through the hallway and sees Maria meeting up with Takigawa by a tree, so he runs as fast as he can until he catches up to Maria by a staircase. As they walk home together, Basara asks Maria why she was meeting up with Takigawa, and she explains that she was just asking him for directions after getting lost, so he pats her on the head while telling her he was worried about her. Meanwhile, Zest uses a crystal ball to show her master, Zulja, videos of Basara and the girls, and she informs him that Basara is the son of Jin. Zulja is shocked that Basara could erase magic, so Zest explains his banishing shift ability to him before telling him that the only other person who knows about it is Lars. She then informs him that all the pieces for his plan are in place, so he declares that he'll show Basara and the girls the ultimate despair and pleasure. Later that night, everyone is gathered in the living room for the Master-Servant Pact to begin, but Basara is shocked to see Yuki in Angela White's hero costume. So Yuki explains that she had Maria make it for her to spice up the event. As Basara scolds Maria, Yuki tells him to look at her, but he refuses, so she threatens to drain his white sauce in his sleep, forcing him to finally look at her. Once the ritual begins, the magic circle appears on Basara's hand, so he tells Yuki to kiss it, but she refuses because she wants him to dominate her the same way he did for Mio. The magic circle disappears, causing Yuki to lose control of her body, so Maria instructs Basara to satisfy her, and he agrees. Like a true Sigma Lord, Basara starts exploring her plots, and he realizes that her peaches are her most sensitive assets, so he tells her to position herself properly. While Yuki is on all fours, Basara massages her cakes while Maria records until her fountain overflows, thereby completing the ritual. However, Maria asks Basara to take Yuki to the bath to cool her off the same way he did for Mio, but she adds a twist by telling Mio to join them there. When Mio asks why, Maria explains that she and Yuki need to deepen their bond since they're both Basara's servants, and tells them to start calling each other by their first names, so they both agree to her terms. As they have their bath together, Zest watches from afar, and she wonders if her master-servant relationship with Zulja would have been just as sweet if he were younger, but she quickly discards the idea. The next day in school, Mio and Yuki are moving like haiku characters on the volleyball court, while Basara watches from afar, but the ball is launched towards him and hits his arm as he tries to dodge. Shortly afterwards, he gets patched up by Chisato in the nurse's office, and she tells him to come back to her if the pain gets worse, because she's a lot more skilled than most doctors around. As he walks away, Chisato instructs him not to take the bandage off until she tells him to. Minutes later, Basara is getting changed in the locker room, but a girl from his class named Sakaki suddenly arrives and asks if he's dating Yuki and Mio. Once he confirms that he hasn't, she pounces on him like a desperate hoe and begs him to eat her marshmallows, but Mio and Yuki storm into the room. Mio gets overwhelmed with jealousy and runs anyway, but Yuki summons her sword and launches an attack at Sakaki, which she dodges. Yuki explains to Basara that Sakaki is being controlled by someone since she can see her sword, and she points out that Sakaki left the door open on purpose during her teasing to allow someone to see them. Hearing this, Basara tells Yuki to handle her while he goes after Mio to take care of her curse. After he leaves, Yuki approaches Sakaki to begin their fight, but another possessed girl named Aikawa arrives, so Yuki decides to end them both with one attack. Meanwhile, Mio runs through the yard, wondering why Basara was cheating on her with a cheap hoe, and her curse starts to get more intense. Just then, Maria arrives and starts checking on her, but she suddenly falls asleep due to a spell cast by Zest, who appears on the scene as well. When Basara arrives, he's surprised to see a demon around his foster sisters, so he charges in at full force with his sword, but Zest teleports them away before he can reach them. Out of desperation, Basara activates his slave crest to find Mio, but unfortunately, he realizes that he can only sense Yuki, and Mio is nowhere to be found. Several years ago, Mio was dining peacefully with her original foster family, but Zolgia suddenly appeared, so her father drew a sword to face him. With a single slash, Zolgia cut off both his arms, and the evil scumbag proceeded to crush him like a cockroach. Seeing this, Mio screamed from fear, and her foster mom tried to retaliate with a flame spell, but Zolgia did a diabolical Uno reverse, as he used her own flames to roast her to death. Hours later, Mio woke up to the sight of her cousin, Maria, who transformed into her demon form and revealed to her that her real father was the previous demon lord, Wilbert, making her a demon princess. She then asked Mio to run away with her and went on her knees while assuring her that she would protect her as she was sent to do. In the present, Mio wakes up and notices that she's now hung up in chains. When Zest arrives, Mio scolds her for using underhanded tactics to kidnap her and accuses her of being a servant of the new demon lord, Leohart, but Zolgia makes a surprise entrance while revealing that he's not after Wilbert's power alone. Once Mio sees him, she immediately starts crashing like Eren Yeager, while swearing that she'll never forgive him for murdering her parents, but Zolgia uses a spell to silence her and declares that he'll make her feel pain as well as pleasure. As he moves in to grab her melons, Mio prays for Basara to come save her, but Maria interrupts by informing him that there's a message for him coming from the royal palace. Using a crystal ball, Zolgia goes on a WhatsApp video call with Leohart, and Zolgia informs the demon lord that a portion of the barrier in his region is growing unstable due to fluctuations in magic waves in the area. When Leohart points out that Mio is missing, Zolgia lies that he's washed his hands of her case ever since Leohart dismissed him as an observer, so Leohart summons him to the castle to join in investigating a set of ancient ruins they found. Zolgia asks why he was chosen, so Leohart explains that they've made progress in ancient magic, which is his area of expertise, so Zolgia agrees and leaves the evil lair. Meanwhile, Basara meets up with Takigawa and asks him about Mio's whereabouts, so Takigawa explains that Maria has been following orders from Zolgia, whose main goal is to claim Mio's power and cookie for himself. When Basara asks why Maria is working for him, Takigawa reveals that Zolgia is hiding her mom hostage to make her cooperate because she has a trump card which he fears. To make things worse, Takigawa also spills that Zolgia was the one who ordered Maria to reverse Basara and Mio's slave pact, and he plans to unalive her by feasting on her plots. Basara demands to know their location, but Takigawa feigns ignorance, so Basara draws his sword and challenges him to a fight. A while later, Lars meets up with Zest outside Zolgia's lair and offers her Basara's unconscious body in exchange for Mio. Zest is surprised that he's making such an offer, so Lars reminds her that Basara is a discount Ichigo with the power to erase attacks and brings up the fact that Zolgia was summoned to the Demon Lord's castle. This makes her realize that he was the one who recommended Zolgia for the mission, but Lars points out that abducting Mio in secret is a clear betrayal of the Demon Lord and urges her to do what's necessary to protect her master. Hearing this, Zest pretends to agree to his terms and then stabs a hole through him. While struggling with the pain, Lars reminds Zest that unaliving him would put her in trouble, but she says it doesn't matter because Zolgia would have already gained the power of Mio and Basara by the time Leohart hears of it. She then roasts him with a flame spell and calls Zolgia to update him on what just went down. In the demon lair, Maria sees Mio unconscious and starts to feel guilty, as she remembers when Zolgia showed her that her mom is in his cell and ordered her to capture Basara and Mio. Just then, Zest arrives with an unconscious Basara and delivers some orders from Zolgia for Maria to dominate his heart with her succubus powers. When Basara wakes up, he senses that Mio is in the building, so he tries to get up to save her, only to see that he's chained up on a bed. Maria informs him they are in Zolgia's mansion and climbs on top of him. After loosening his buttons, she starts treating his chest like an ice cream bar, but Basara interrupts by asking her to join him in saving her mom and Mio from Zolgia. Maria explains that she's only cooperating with Zolgia because he's too overpowered. Basara points out that Zolgia doesn't need her or her mom anymore since he's captured Mio, and Maria admits he's right, but claims that she can't do anything other than follow Zolgia's orders to dominate his heart. She then activates her trump card, which transforms her lolly body into a full-size mommy with mega milkers, and explains to Basara that it's this power that allowed her to escape with Mio when they first met. Meanwhile, Yuki is in her full hero gear, walking through the forest because Basara told her earlier about Mio and Maria's situation, and formed a plan with her to save both of them. Inside the demon bedroom, Maria hypnotizes Basara, and after taking off his chains, she asks him to feast on her plots, so he proceeds to drink from her milk fountain while she makes loud war cries. Even though she's excited, she feels sad that it's the first and last time that she and Basara will enjoy each other, but she hugs him tightly and prays that he forgives her. However, Basara snaps out of her spell and declares that he'll save her, so she jumps away from him and puts her cakes back in their covers. When Basara summons his sword, Maria hulks out her arms to face him, but he plants his sword in the ground, and after it disappears, he says he'll save her. Even though he knows she's stronger than him at hand-to-hand combat, Maria then fires a dark blast at her, but Basara zooms in behind her, so she punches him to the wall. While watching Maria pummel him, Zest is surprised that Basara's love juices made Maria's powers grow so much, but she realizes that Maria could end up ruining their plans by unaliving him. So she decides to handle things herself. However, Yuki makes a dramatic entrance by blasting her with a spell, and Zest realizes that she managed to get into the barrier thanks to Basara, who erased a portion of the barrier earlier with his banishing shift. Yuki and Zest go bar for bar, throwing their best magic spells and counters at each other, and Zest admits that Yuki is skilled, but points out that she stands no chance of winning because heroes can't receive protection from the spirits in the demon realm. However, her evil monologue is cut short when Mio fires a flurry of magic blasts at her, and Yuki frees her from her restraints before informing her that Maria's mother is being held hostage. Zest transforms the earth beneath them into spikes, but the ladies dodge, and Yuki overwhelms her with light slashes, which she manages to survive before firing some dark blasts of her own. Just when Zest starts to get confident, Mio sets her on fire, and Yuki delivers a slash, but Zest appears behind them unscathed and blasts Yuki's weapon away from her hands. As Zest tries to finish her, Mio blocks with a magic barrier, making Zest realize that she can't win without injuring her, so Zest switches to gaslighting mode, as she claims that Basara is more focused on saving Maria than her. However, Mio says she knows her daddy loves both of them, and he's saving Maria because she was there when he woke up, but she points out that Zest is envious of them because her and Zolgia's relationship is more of oppression than love. Zest then tries to sneak attack them with earth tentacles, but they dodge, and the impact of Maria's fight upstairs sends a large rock crashing into the scene, allowing Yuki to charge at Zest once again. In the bedroom, Basara starts bleeding from the mouth, but Maria launches him to the wall with a punch and begs him to save himself by staying down. However, Basara says "Mata Mata," and while walking towards her, he declares that he'll save her because he doesn't want to lose anyone precious to him. Overwhelmed with emotions, Maria tries to punch him again, but Basara tanks the punch and hugs her while telling her to let Big Brother take care of everything. Downstairs, Yuki and Mio have already defeated Zest, so they tie her up and prepare to go meet Basara, but suddenly, Zolgia freezes them in place with a dark spell while making his villain entrance. Seeing that Yuki also has juicy plots, Zolgia decides that he'll claim her as well, and he knocks her out with a spell, which hits Zest. He then reveals that he knows Zest has been envying Basara and the girls because her thoughts flow into him via demonic Wi-Fi, and he tries to eliminate her with an evil spell, but Basara cancels it with banishing shift and attacks him. Zolgia blocks the attack and asks about Maria, but Basara tells him to go crack himself, so Zolgia uses a dark spell to take over Basara's mind and tries to take a peek at Basara's powers. While approaching Basara, Zolja calls Jin a fool for abandoning his title of greatest hero to play house with his worthless son, and he declares that he'll claim Wilbert's power in Mio as well as Basara's power. But Basara manages to break free of his mind control and forces him back. Basara admits that he isn't anything special and declares that he'll make Zolja pay for insulting his dad, but Zolja easily blocks his attacks. After remembering Jin's words of motivation, Basara charges more fiercely, but Zolja still blocks easily and calls him pathetic before knocking him to the ground. Zolja then blasts him with dark flames of hell, and Basara erases the attack with banishing shift, but that impact still sends him flying. As he struggles back to his feet, Zolja says he's impressed that Basara was able to block his attack and claims that he'll become the new ruler of the demon realm after stealing Basara and Mio's power. Boiling in anger, Basara charges in with a barrage of vicious attacks, but Zolja blocks his attacks as usual. However, Basara manages to injure him, so Zolja goes invisible and chokes him out while praising him for managing to scratch him. The evil creep then slams him on the ground, but Basara defiantly returns to his feet, so Zolja goes into stealth mode once again. Basara realizes that he can only swing his sword normally one more time, so he plans to make an offensive move the instant Zolja tries to attack him. When he senses Zolja close to him, he swings his sword, hoping to slice the bootleg all for one in half, but Zolja stops his attack with a dark barrier and blasts him into the wall, causing his slaves to scream his name in fear. Zolja then uses his dark powers on Basara's mind again, giving him Gunnar dreams where all of his girls are devouring his sausage, but Maria suddenly arrives in her trump card form and declares that she'll stop him. When Zolja tries to attack her, Maria instantly dodges, so Zolja starts yapping about his freaky plans for her and Mio. But Maria says she'd rather die than go on her knees for his 2-inch, wrinkled shrimp. She claims that she's there to stop Basara from being reckless and unalive Zolja. But Zolja points out that her trump card form will only last for a few more minutes and displays a live video feed of her mom's cell. Zolja then asks her to choose between becoming his throat goat or watching her mother die, but Maria refuses both options, so he reveals that he's already activated a magical bomb in her mom's cell, which destroyed her hours ago. Maria breaks down in tears, and her trump card wears off, but Mio's mind gets flooded with traumatic flashbacks of her own parents' demise, causing her to go berserk and release a surge of demonic energy around the room. Seeing this, Zolja activates an anti-magic field around Mio, which cancels out all her rampaging energy, and he explains that it was his plan all along to trigger Mio's powers by reminding her of her trauma. As he approaches her, Maria tries to attack him, but he freezes her in place using his dark mind control and tries to touch Mio to claim her powers. However, his hand gets shattered before it can make impact, and the evil lunatic realizes that Mio is using her own magic power, which is just as broken as Wilbert's. When she tries to end him, Basara tells her to stop, so she explains to him that she's lived her whole life aiming to get revenge on the ugly dirtbag, but Basara says he doesn't want her to face the eternal despair and suffering that comes after revenge. Hearing this, she asks him to order her not to unalive him since she'll have no choice but to obey him as her master, but Basara refuses because doing so would make them unable to return to being family. He then promises to protect her from the hatred of having her parents stolen from her and the regret of letting Zolja go, so she hugs him tightly while crying her eyes out. However, Zolja seizes the opportunity and disappears, and this makes the girls worry, but Basara assures them that everything will be fine. Just then, Maria's mom arrives, completely unharmed, and this confuses everyone, so Basara explains that his accomplice helped her escape. Meanwhile, Zolja moves outside to make his escape, but Lars suddenly appears in front of him, making him realize that Zest only slayed one of Lars's shadow clones. Lars then reveals that he helped Maria's mother, Shella, escape long before the prison bomb was activated as part of his plan with Basara. When Zolja asks what he's after, Lars explains that the deal he made with Basara was that he'd get to murder him with his own hands for unaliving his foster parents. In the evil lair, Shella introduces herself to Basara and thanks him for taking care of her daughter. However, Zest reveals that Zolja's barrier has vanished, and this leads to the awakening of Zolja's lair's true form, which is actually the demon realm's most dangerous creature. When a drop of acid melts a piece of Yuki's armor, Basara realizes that they're in the stomach of the monster, and Zest explains that it's almost impossible to escape the space because it's dimensionally cut off. Outside, Zolja tells Lars about his evil plan for the beast to multiply infinitely after it's fully awakened and swallow up the world. Back in the stomach, Basara and the ladies fight off deadly monsters, and Zest reveals that the core of the mansion is at the center, but it's covered by dimensional separation, making it impossible for any physical or magic attacks to harm it. However, Basara decides to head over to it and cancel the dimensional separation using his banishing shift, so Mio and Yuki offer to follow him, and Zest decides to lead them there. As they run through the monster's body, some flesh tentacles trip Mio, but Yuki stops her from falling. Zest reveals that the monster's core is right below them, but also explains that the monster has begun to change because the magic keeping its body together has been undone, meaning that they have to force their way forward. After blasting through the wall in front of them, Zest leads the team to a section of the body, where a bunch of flesh monsters appear to attack them, so Zest explains that the creature's immune system has activated to defend itself. Yuki offers to hold off the monsters while Basara and the others go ahead to the core room, and Basara tries to debate her decision, but she tells him to believe in her, so he orders her not to die. Mio worries for her as well, but Yuki swiftly dismantles one of the monsters and tells her that she doesn't intend to let her have Basara all to herself before going full Samurai Jack on the other monsters. During the fight, Zest opens up a path beneath them and jumps down, so Basara carries Mio and jumps after her until they land in Zulja's private room, which is directly above the core. There, Mio sees some cyborg bodies that look very similar to Zest, but one of them suddenly awakens and starts choking her out. Seeing this, Basara runs as fast as he can to save her, but another Zest cyborg tackles him to the ground. As she tries to attack him, Zest destroys both fakes with dark flames, but the noise causes all the other Zest prototypes in the room to awaken. Basara and the girls start ripping the monsters apart, but eventually, the creatures learn how to use magic and start firing blasts at them. Despite this, the team manages to destroy these monstrosities, and while staring at their corpse, Zest realizes that she was meant to be abandoned from the beginning. Shortly afterwards, they arrive at the core room, and the girls step forward to destroy its protective covering, but they're immediately knocked down by flesh tentacles. While keeping Basara occupied in the air, the flesh monsters blast the girls with a corrosive acid, which they barely manage to dodge. Everyone fears that defeating the monsters could be impossible, but Zest decides to make multiple attacks at close range to make the immune system's tentacles focus on her while Basara goes for the core. Basara tries to stop her, but she reveals that the monsters they fought in the previous form were actually her because she's a magical organism created by Zulja as a prototype to test for errors. As the tentacles approach her, Zest tells the others not to worry about her life, but Mio argues that she can't abandon her because she has a heart. However, Basara agrees to Zest's plan, and as Zest holds down the monsters, Basara charges in and unleashes his banishing shift on the core, causing the ugly titan to release all its energy through its mouth before falling to its death. Seeing this, Lars tells Zulja that it's over for him and casts a spell directly at his face. When Zest wakes up, she's surprised that she's completely unharmed, but she remembers how Basara pushed her away from the monstrous spikes before proceeding to destroy the core. Shella advises her to run away since no one could currently stop her, but she refuses because she's decided to leave her fate in the hands of Basara. However, when the other girls wake up, they realize that Basara isn't around them. Meanwhile, Lars is giving Zulja the full cartel treatment in a dark room, and he reveals that someone has come to watch him die, so Zulja starts plotting to manipulate the person to gain his freedom. However, Basara is the one who arrives, so Zulja asks what he's doing there. And Lars explains that the final condition in their deal is that he has to let Basara confirm his death in exchange for vouching for him to the girls. Out of desperation, Zulja begs Basara to make a deal with him and promises to give him a harem of demonic baddies with mega gyats, but Basara gives Lars the go-ahead to pull the trigger. So Lars paints the wall with Zulja's empty brain. Later that night, Basara returns home, where Yuki informs him that Maria and her mom are sleeping while Mio is awake. Zest suggests that Basara end her, but he refuses and promises to get her time until she finds a new way to live, so she agrees to follow his words. After checking in on Maria and her mom, Basara serves Mio tea in her room and tries to leave, but she pulls him back. When he notices that he's trembling, he holds her and assures her that everything is okay, so she asks him to stay with her a while longer. While they talk, Basara remembers Tokigawa's warnings that someone else could capture Mio. Suddenly, Basara snaps and declares that he'll never let anyone steal her milkshakes from him before kissing her and devouring her plots. When he finally returns to his senses, he immediately apologizes, but Mio begs him to kiss her again. However, Yuki arrives and kisses him instead, causing another argument between the two airheaded baddies, so boss Sarah calls Maria to calm them down. While watching them argue, Maria suddenly gets teary-eyed and kisses boss Sarah herself, so Yuki and Mio angrily call her a thieving wench. Following this, Zest and Shella return to the demon realm, and Basara and the girls return to their peaceful lives at home. Meanwhile, the demon lord, Leo Hart, returns to his throne room, only to see that all his guards have been knocked out by Jin, who is casually smoking a blunt on his throne. After putting out the cigar, Jin swears that he'll make Leo Hart pay for hurting his family, with a terrifying smile on his face. That's it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it and watch this video on screen.